Hi, 5th and 6th grade. It's Mrs. Partipillo, and it's time for our weekly lesson in music. You may see in front of me some jars that are filled with water, and I'm hoping that you can join in with me as we play these musical instruments. You will need 3 either canning jars or glasses that you might drink from, but they need to be out of glass. They can't be out of plastic. It won't work. You also will need water, and you will need a metal spoon to play your instrument today. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it so that you can get these materials. To play our musical instruments today, we need 3 different amounts of water in these glasses. The first glass will have just a small amount. You may have noticed it's not halfway. It's maybe about a third, I would say. And then the second glass is a little bit more than half. And then the last glass is really close to full, okay? And the reason that we have 3 different amounts is we're going to have 3 different notes as we play hot cross buns today. And when we're playing hot cross buns, we need to know which note is number 3, which note is number 2, and which note is number 1. Well, let's figure it out this way. Okay, so if I was to sing hot cross buns, here's the words. If you don't remember it, we've done it in band. We did it in recorders too. Hot cross buns starts with the highest note being 3. The middle note is number 2. And then number 1 is the lowest note. So I'm going to go ahead and sing it, and then we'll be able to figure out which one we should play. Hot cross buns, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. Yeah, so the highest note, go ahead and figure out which one do you think is the highest one. Yes, so the glass filled the least is actually the highest note, and then the glass in the middle is number 2. So we've got 3, 2, and then the one filled up the most is 1. Go ahead and listen. You hear the difference between those 3 notes? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and play hot cross buns. Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? So it's kind of like when you're talking about the flute or other instruments, really, per se, is the shorter amount of the instrument, the shorter the tubing, the shorter the length of the instrument, the higher pitch the note will be. So that's why here we have the least amount of water. There's more room for air to move around because there's not as much water in that glass. So that makes it the higher pitch, okay? So why don't you go ahead and try playing with me if you didn't last time. Hot cross buns, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. Let's just play it once more for fun. Nice job. Wasn't that fun? I knew you'd find fun in that, making new instruments and doing it yourself. Yeah, very cool, huh? All right, well, the next thing I have planned for us today is some music math. And before you get going too far, I do want to remind you, this music math assignment is due on Friday. And I have given you some help up this corner and up in this corner as you do this music math, okay? Before you get started on the sheet, though, I'd like to actually go through it together so that you're successful when you're doing this at home. So the notes that we're going to be talking about are right over here on this side of the board. But before we get too far, I do want to remind you, there's going to be a lot of notes that use the dot. And you might remember that the dot tells us to add half of the value of the note, okay? So if you saw a quarter with a dot next to it, a quarter note is 1 beat. Well, the dot tells me to add half of that value to that note when there's a dot next to it. So half of 1 is half, isn't it? So this would be 1 plus half, or 1.5, okay? So let's go through these. We've got an eighth note. It's a half of a count, and we say it's an eighth note, okay? We've got the quarter note. It's 1 beat. The dotted quarter, I just mentioned to you that that dot tells us to add half of its value, so it would be 1.5, okay? And then here we have a half note, 2 counts. Dotted half, we take the half note, which is 2, and add half of that, which is 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. The dotted half is 3 counts. And then we've got a whole note. And then with our rests, there's that 7 looking thing. It's that half, or the eighth rest, half of a count. There's a quarter rest, a half rest. The box sits on the line when it's a half rest, okay? Notice the difference. I like to think that the whole rest is strong enough that it hangs from the bar. It's more, it's heavier, it's able to handle more. So that's why I like to remind myself it hangs from the bar. It's a whole rest. And then we've got this dotted half rest. So we take a half rest, and the dot tells us to add half of its value. Half of 2 is 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. That's why the dotted half rest is 3 counts then. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And if you need a reminder as you're doing your music math assignment, right up here are those same notes I talked about. Right over here is the same rests I just mentioned to you. Let's do a few of them together. Number one is a dotted half note plus a quarter note. Okay, so a dotted half note, 3 counts, plus the quarter note, 1. We should put 4 on the line. Okay, so it's kind of a math game. That's why it's called music math. Number 2 has 2 eighth notes. Well, 1 eighth note is half. Another eighth note is another half. So half and a half makes 1, plus a dotted quarter. So we've got 1 here. The quarter is 1, but the dot tells us to add another half. So we've got 1 plus 1.5 is 2.5. And that's what you put on the answer. You don't have to put on a note. You just actually write the number of its value. Okay, so you would write a fraction there, 2.5. So for number 3, a whole note is 4 counts plus dotted half note. Okay, half note is 2. The dot adds 1 more, 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. Okay, I think we've got a good start on the note side. Let's take a look at the rest side. So rest 11, we've got a quarter rest, which is 1, plus an eighth, which is half, so 1.5. Let's do 12 together. There's that dotted half. Remember, the half rest is 2. The dot adds half of it, which is another half of that, which is 1, so that's 3. 3 plus 1, the quarter rest, is 4. All right, we've got a good start on it. If you have any questions, your parents have my cell phone number. They can send me an email. I'd be happy to help you with this, okay? There's 20 questions, and all of this page is due on Friday. There's nothing on the back. Just this page is due Friday, okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with some different music styles. This is what we were going to be covering at school, and I think we can still do it. So I have copied you this page. It's called Style Dictionary up here on the top. And we're going to be learning about all sorts of different music styles. Let's go ahead and read just the titles so that you can see how many different styles we're going to be learning about. The minuet, the waltz, the polka, the march, flip to the back, ragtime, the blues, jazz ballads, boogie woogie, and new age. Going back to the front, these are the three we're going to cover today: the minuet, the waltz, and the polka. This page is going to be sent home with you, and attached to it is going to be a page with all sorts of different URLs or websites you could go to listen to these styles of music. That's an optional thing. It would be really fun for you to do, but we won't have enough time in the video that I've made to cover all of them. So today we're going to talk about the minuet, the waltz, and the polka, and you will hear examples of those three that I will play on the piano for you. Let's get started with the minuet. The minuet is, we're going to read this paragraph right here. I will read it to you. Please follow along, and then we have two examples to listen to of the minuet. For nearly a century, the minuet was the most popular couples dance of European royal courts and high society from the late 1600s to the late 1700s. Couples danced to the stately gentile music in 3/4 time. You know what 3/4 time is. Moving along in a route in the form of an S or a Z. The minuet was first developed in the court of King Louis XIV of France. Minuets also appear in many operas and ballets, and later the term often described one of the movements of a longer piece, such as a symphony or sonata. The minuet is a dance that has been popular for obviously a very long amount of time. Perhaps you've never danced to a minuet, but I can guarantee you've heard an example of a minuet before. The first example we're going to listen to is by Franz Joseph Haydn. Remember his nickname? Papa Haydn, that's right. He was from the classical period. And the piece that we're going to be listening by him today is in concert F. So we've got B flat. And you will hear it's very much 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3. Very much light and just nice and pleasant to listen to. I'm going to play it again, and I'd like you to count 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. Very nice. And the next example is by Jean-Baptiste Lully. It's a very old piece. And this one is in D minor. Yeah, very pleasant too. All right, there's the minuet. Now let's move on to the waltz. That's another dance. And I know I've made the 7th and 8th graders try waltzing before. I don't think I've done it with you 5th and 6th graders. Shucks that you're not in school with me to try it. You can give it a try though. After we've listened to some of the examples, I'll explain how you could simply do it if you'd like to try it home. The waltz is a dance in 3/4 time with a lilting feel. Historically, it was very popular in the 1800s and actually was once considered to be scandalous for couples to dance so closely together as they glided and turned across the dance floor. Many composers of the 1800s and 1900s wrote waltzes just for listening rather than dancing. Famous waltz composers include Johann Strauss Jr., Frédéric Chopin, and you'll also find waltzes in famous ballets, such as Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. We're actually going to listen to an example by Tchaikovsky from his Swan Lake and a piece by Johann Strauss Jr. Johann Strauss Jr. actually had the nickname of being the Waltz King because he was from Austria and he loved writing waltzes. I have a CD by him that is just waltzes, and it's just super fun. All sorts of different tempos though. Some are really quick and some are very slow. So the waltz is in 3/4 time, just like we heard the minuet. And the waltz is typically done in a box shape. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll even draw a little picture so that you can try it at home. Okay. So here's the Blue Danube Waltz by Johann Strauss Jr. I bet some of you have heard that one before. And then here is that piece from Swan Lake by Peter Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky is most known for writing The Nutcracker. And here is the waltz from Swan Lake. Good. Now I'm going to go back up to the Blue Danube Waltz and let's count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the lilt. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and when you're dancing the waltz, your feet actually do these kind of steps. You start with both feet together, one foot moves over, and the next one follows, and then you take a step back, and the other foot follows, and then one foot comes over, the other one follows, and you go right back up. See the shape? It's a box. And if you wanted to try, you could put both feet together, then step to the side, right, left, go back with your right first, right, left, and then go over to this side with your left leading, left, right, and then go back up to finish your box. So if you were going quick, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And I think I might have drawn it just a little bit off, but I think you get the idea. It's actually a very fun dance, and a lot of people really enjoy waltzing. Okay, let's go on to the polka. The polka and the waltz actually sound very similar. Okay, so let's hear about the polka. The polka is a brisk and lively dance in 2/4 time. So that's the difference. 3/4 time and 2/4 time. The basic step is a hop followed by 3 short steps. So hop, skip, skip, skip. The polka was originally a Czech peasant dance developed in Eastern Bohemia using folk song tunes. The dance was first introduced to the ballrooms of Prague, in 1835. In 1840, the dance was introduced to Paris audiences and became wildly popular. Even today, the polka remains popular in such genres as country western polkas and within the American European cultures. So the polka, we're going to listen to some examples that are actually written by the composer of my book. The polka is actually very fun. There's some TV shows that you can watch where people are doing the polka, well, some old TV shows. And some people just really get into polka. But I've never really done the polka, so I can't really explain to you how to do it. But we did hear that the first step is on beat 1, and then there's 3 small steps. So I guess you could try it yourself if you'd like. Here's the first song I'm going to play. It's called Peasant Dance Polka. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. 1 here's another polka called Polka Dots. Yeah, those are just fun examples, aren't they? Okay, so we've covered the minuet, the waltz, and the polka. And like I mentioned, there's going to be a sheet attached to this that will have all those URLs to go check out some more if you'd like on your time. And the last thing we have to finish for music today is the hymn of the month, This Joyful Easter Tide. Let's take a look at it. You have a copy of it also. And This Joyful Easter Tide is a hymn for the month of April. We were going to be singing in chapel, but we're still going to sing it over these music lessons. And this joyful Easter tide reminds us that Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. Alleluia. We have that great news to share that Christ has triumphed over sin, death, and the devil. And this hymn is a wonderful tune. It's 3 verses, and then there's a refrain that starts right down here. So you'll learn it very quick. If you look at who it's written by, the text is by George Woodward. And then down here, the tune, it's from a book that was written in Amsterdam, and then it was brought into a book called Worship and Rejoice. And this tune is very quick. You'll like to learn it. It's very much an Easter tune. So here we go. This joyful Easter tide, away with sin and sorrow. My love, the crucified, has brought to light this morrow. Let's try the verse again. This joyful Easter tide, away with sin and sorrow. My love, the crucified, has brought to life this morrow. Had Christ, who once was slain, not burst his 3-day prison, our faith had been in vain, but now has Christ arisen, 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 but now has Christ arisen. Try the refrain again. Had Christ, who once was slain, not burst his 3-day prison, our faith had been in vain, but now has Christ arisen, 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 but now has Christ arisen. Back to the beginning, verse 1 and the refrain together again. This joyful Easter tide, away with sin and sorrow. My love, the crucified, has brought to light this morrow. Had Christ, who once was slain, not burst his 3-day prison, our faith had been in vain, but now has Christ arisen, 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 but now has Christ arisen. Very nice. Thank you, 5th and 6th grade. I hope you have a great week of learning, and I'll see you next week for some more music time. Bye.